me either the either or the either. I told you we're out of Phoenix now. Okay, alright!
Hi, you're listening to Magecast, the ensemble podcast by the well-read mage and a cast of mages. Each episode, I sit down with my rotating panel of guests to have some civil discourse about a single game. We're a group of games writers dedicated to long-form content and critique. You can find us on WordPress at thewellreadmage.com, on Twitter at thewellreadmage, and on YouTube. Crowdfunding support makes projects like Magecast possible. If you enjoy our work, written or otherwise, you can check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/thewellreadmage for more information on exclusives, rewards, and our vision for a future of better games writing and a friendlier gaming community. Links are in the description. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share Magecast with your fellow adventurers. Leave us a review, too. Oh, and now let's start the show. Okay, so we're ready?
We're ready,
ready to go.
We're rolling.
Okay.
It's your show now.
All right. Well, that's awesome. So let's see. Well, what's the, you know what? I remember your bippity boppity for last time as the opener. And every time I start a podcast now, I just want to be like, bippity boppity. Just to start it.
It's catchy.
Yeah, but instead I'll say,
Hey there, paisanos! Welcome to the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
actually, this is Magecast. And today, this afternoon, I have the pleasure of sitting down with two fine gentlemen.
We're gentlemen.
You are gentlemen, because this is Magecast. Okay, but don't interrupt me, kid.
You just lost your gentleman
That's not gentleman status.
Gentlemen, don't interrupt.
Okay, delete this. Just kidding. Don't delete anything. I tend to stammer a lot, too, during this, so you're just going to have to put up with it. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, so I'm sitting here with the cast of Opinioneering. Okay, I've got with me Daniel.
Hi.
Hi. And I've got Jason.
What's up, world?
I wanted you to say bippity.
I was
darn it,
so
okay,
badly. I thought you were going to go for it. I really thought you were going to commit.
Oh, man.
Just do it for the ladies.
Bippity boppity.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you guys just to open, kind of introduce yourselves, say what you're about, and then really kind of give me, like, what is the vision for Opinioneering? Like, why are you guys podcasting?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah, just we're gonna ask some big questions tonight, but this is only an hour, like 20 long, so
I'm gonna try and do it real fast. I've
right.
done this more times than Jason has, because Jason doesn't go on. This is a special thing. Jason doesn't go on other people's podcasts.
Okay.
Like, he literally does it.
and wow,
Yeah. And this one, he's like, what was this? Yeah. What's the topic? Arkham? Done.
We could do that. We could do that.
We can do
I
that.
feel so honored, sir. and to clarify, this is 2/3 of the trifecta of Opinioneering, right?
Yeah.
We're missing
Yeah.
Colton.
Colton, yeah.
Right?
Colton
Okay.
Freeman, yeah. He lives up in 29 Palms. He just moved away about 2 years ago, but he comes down and we record like marathon recordings with him. When he can't come down, Jason and I usually just do me and him, and then we do shows with special guests, such as yourself. We did the Final Fantasy for Dummies and Final Fantasy Favorites.
Yeah.
So that's what we do, but mostly Opinioneering got started 3 years ago now. It got started 3 years ago, and Jason's been in love with podcasts since almost its conception. So what is that, like over 15 years, right? 10, 15 years?
I mean, yeah, that's when podcasts maybe first kind of came on the scene. But the current, golden era of podcasts has maybe been the past 5 years, in my opinion. So I would say, like, when I've really dove deep, like before it was just like, oh, hey, here's this random podcast, let me listen. But there wasn't the amount and depth of content that's here today. So.
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, it was like all of mine and Jason's projects. It starts off with a couple of drinks. And one night in his garage, and we just started talking. I forgot what we were talking about. I think it was Bruce Lee. We were talking about Bruce Lee, I think. And we were talking about like him and like him as like being the embodiment of like peak physical condition. And then we got onto like Batman, like, yeah, because he started like, and so there were a couple drinks in, right? And so we were like, dude, we should start a podcast. Like, our ideas aren't we're stupid, but it's not. We just like not hearing ourselves talk. We just like sharing our opinions about things.
So basically, it's all vanity. It's all like, our conversations are so great. Who wouldn't want to listen to this?
So we had another project. It's not another project, but it's called Little Fella Media, where we do live in studio sessions with bands. We've done bands, like Dustin Kensher from Thrice, and maybe April from Back East, and some other bigger bands. But we already had the recording equipment, so then we just started from there. And we needed a third person, so we asked Colton to come on board. And it's growing, and so that's why we started to do delve into podcasts. And here pretty soon, Jason and I are starting a new project with maybe a podcast network here in the near future. But this was kind of our test run, and now we have a good steady follow fan basis, mostly on our Instagram. We didn't really go on Twitter for up until about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
But we have a large following on Instagram and a good steady following on Facebook. A lot of people, contribute on there. So we just a nerd culture podcast, where we just do topical things, and we have, some bourbon on hand and lifelong nerds going for it. So now the overall goal for Opinioneering
Is to mogul up.
No, hopefully to do partnerships with others such as yourself and other podcasts, and we're gonna get a Patreon here going pretty soon. And like I said, we weren't thinking. I mean, we literally thought if we only had our wives listening to this, maybe 10 people listening to this, we'll be
10
happy.
wives. That was a funny phrasing. I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
So that's what we started out as, and now we have hundreds. So it's very nice.
Nice. How long have you been going for with Opinioneering?
It's recordings about 2.5 years. We started the summer of 2015, but in 2016 we recorded no episodes. We went 6 months, and then we got a good fan base, but then they didn't hear from us for an entire year. Personal stuff and in all of our lives happened, and there was no possible way we can get in front of a mic that year. So we took a break, and then we hit it hard at the beginning of 2017, and we haven't stopped since. So our fan base came back up, and we're enjoying it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you guys are back.
Did you want to add anything?
Yeah.
Nope, that all sounds good to me.
Oh, okay.
All right. So what are you guys playing right now? Because my podcast is a video game themed podcast. So Jason, why don't we start with you? What are you playing right now?
So I'll preface it with this. I just literally here, like literally this month, am like wrapping up grad school. So with that, I mean, that was just like the huge time suck of my life that just drains like most of my spare energy. And so my gaming habits really have been limited.
Understandably.
To where basically it's just been like, if there's a big release that I'm like, dude, I know I have to play this, then that's where I like spend. It's like one of those things where it's like I finish up like my homework and it's like 11:45 and I'm like, I could do an hour of some gaming.
3 a.m.
3 in the morning. So, gosh, I wish, even just this year, I managed to play God of War just because I was like, dude, I've got to play this. It looks awesome. Even though I wasn't a fan of the previous ones, this reboot looks incredible. And it was incredible. So, but for the past, since Spider-Man came out, basically that's kind of been like the perfect just fire up your console and enjoy the bliss of swinging around. It's like so intuitive and wonderful. Yeah. So I don't even have to play story missions. I'm literally just
They're
like
just doing all those
catching
those pigeons.
Exactly. But
didn't you also play Yakuza though? You were telling me about that.
Yeah. So there was like a down period where, I think it was between God of War and Spider-Man. I picked up the Yakuza series because it was like super cheap on sale. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. And so that was pretty fun. Like really, a really different kind of game. That took me a while to figure out like what it was going for because it's such a different type of game. But once I realized that it's basically the gameplay is the spirit. It's like the modern day spirit of the old like side scroller beat 'em up games combined with basically like a Japanese mafia soap opera. Once you get through that, you're like, okay, I understand what you're going for, game. I'm cool with this. But honestly, right now, I'm still having fun with Spidey, but we were talking earlier, Red Dead Redemption 2 just came out. I haven't played it yet. It's sitting there loaded on my PS4. I want to get to it. But my other target for this holiday season is I really want to get to Dragon Quest XI.
Oh yeah, and that'll be a time sink.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking forward to right now.
Cool. Well, I hope you get some time off just so you can play Dragon Quest XI. Yeah, I've heard things that I'll see you in 3 years.
Yeah,
something like that. What about you, Daniel?
So I'm same boat. I just platinum Spider-Man. Enjoyed a lot of it. I'm that type of gamer that likes playing co-op and multiplayer stuff with other people. So I play a lot with my brother-in-law and friends. So I'm going to be that guy in the room and say I'm playing a lot of Call of Duty right now.
That guy. After we were talking about the console wars earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Another controversial statement. This should be a controversial podcast.
So
I'm surprised you guys aren't like Fortnite players or something.
I hate Fortnite.
Really?
I hate the setup of it. I hate the gameplay of it.
All right, well, we just like hemorrhaged thousands of listeners.
Everybody's like, turn this off. Thanks a lot for listening, you guys.
So let's move along. I'm sorry.
So Call of Duty, I play just the multiplayer with my brother-in-law. We do a lot of Rocket League, and it's been a long time since I've played, besides Spider-Man, like an actual just like campaign game. I really want to get Dead Cells.
Okay.
I really want to pick up Dead Cells, but I just haven't found a game that's really grabbed me in a long time. And any recommendations that you guys have, that'd be great.
What are some of your favorite genres?
Okay, I'll tell you some of my favorite games. Okay, I love Journey.
Oh, yeah, Journey.
Yeah, I love Journey. I love the Uncharted series. Uncharted series is probably one of my top favorites. I mean, the series that we're about to go through right now, Arkham, is probably one of my tops. A lot of adventure, story, character-driven.
Okay.
Storylines kind of
Have you
thing.
played The Last of Us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Everybody's played that.
Yes. Yeah. That one's a little bit different for me.
Yeah.
The pacing of it was a real. I had to get readjusted to it. I have to appreciate it for what it did. I mean, right before that, wasn't it Santa Monica Studios? No. Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog did that one, and right before that was the Uncharted series. So it's by the same developer. So you think it's kind of a running gun.
That's
type
why.
of thing.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of adjustment. I think the story had some beautiful aspects to it. It looked gorgeous. When it first came out. Still
one of like the best looking games I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I've wanted to get Witcher. I heard Witcher 3 is actually another gorgeous game.
Super cool game.
So those type of adventure type stories, I do enjoy. But for the most part, my gaming is. Dragon Ball fighters with co-op, playing against people.
Yeah.
I like that.
And there's no shame in that. That's gaming.
Well, we won't talk to you for the rest of the show.
Right. So Jason, no, just kidding. So like I had my brother out recently, right? And
shout out Nathaniel.
Oh, Nathaniel was so cool. And we popped on the Super Nintendo and sat down and played some Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which gives you a lot of anxiety as a 30-year-old. You're like, I have to save these neighbors, and then they scream as they die. But anyway, local multiplayer is so golden. It's so fun just to invite somebody over and sit down and play together on the same TV.
Oh yeah.
With you feed off each other's energy.
Yeah.
So again, there's no shame in the kind of games that you like to enjoy.
Well, I mean, like if you talk about anxiety, last holiday season, and we do it every year. In the TV that's right behind you, we hook up the N64 and we do Mario Kart, the original Super Smash, and the original Mario Party. And if you guys remember right, the level where Boo is chasing after you and you have to rotate.
Yeah.
And then you
break the controller.
and then your palms are bleeding by the end of that, and people are like, oh my god, like such fun games.
Okay, do you have a Switch?
I don't. I want to get one of these Christmas for my kids.
I think we were talking about this
same.
the last time I was over here, but so they put out Super Mario Party on the Switch.
Good.
Which is, in my opinion, the perfect Mario Party.
Really?
game. Yeah.
Oh.
They took out all of that sort of thing, like rolling the joystick. They took out a lot of the complex items and things that just kind of like, I don't even understand this rule or what you're trying to tell me. It's very streamlined. I sat down and played it with my wife and my 3-year-old son, and we're just having just a ton of fun playing it.
Sounds great.
So that's one recommendation at least for you there.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely get a Switch. Switches are great. But today though, we're going to be talking about Batman Arkham Asylum, which was released, believe it or not, in 2009.
It's almost 10 years.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah, on the good old PS3. So, to open, I just wanted to kind of ask you guys about your impressions, your general ideas, your highlights, your memories about this game. What are sort of like, so Jason, when you look at this, when you stare into the steely cold eyes of pure justice.
What an intro.
Yeah, and as our listeners would know, we use visual props here because, like I said earlier, kind of forget what Batman looks like, right? I've got my cake topper here from when I got married. We had one for, there's a funny story. But yeah, we had the one for my wife was Catwoman. And I'm trying to find a Catwoman that's dressed a little more conservatively for a wedding is nigh impossible. But
I wonder if they made one for her dress that they just had in Batman issue 47 through 50. Have you read those?
No.
For that wedding?
No.
I like that dress.
Maybe.
Yeah.
This was like the black and white statuette set, I guess. But what we ended up finding was like her first appearance, which was it's still like a low cut dress, but it had like I don't even know what dress terms are, so I can't describe it. But anyway, dude, look at this guy's ears. Notice any like weird like cracking effect
that
on
it
the
broke
top of
at
the
the top
ears?
right there?
Yeah,
On his ears?
Yeah, and you could probably see that too.
Well, what
okay,
happened?
so what happened was I took it out of the box. I was living with my parents right before I got married, and I was so excited. I was like, this is gorgeous. So I took it outside to go and show my parents, and I was holding it sideways, and I swung my hand through the door and clipped his ears off. Oh. And I was like, Batman's bald! Like, I had like a mini freak out, because I mean, this thing was like $90 or however stupid expensive they are back then. But yeah, so I glued Batman's ears on myself. And that's your story. So anyways, getting back to what I was going to ask you, Jason, what are your impressions and your memories and your highlights about this game? When you look at it, what do you think?
Man, it was definitely genre defining. I think that up until that moment, well, even in that same period of time, we were just getting into a new era of superhero movies. And in the same way, like, we would think about superhero games as just the crappy cash-ins for the movie, or just like a pale version of, superheroing. And so this game, well, actually, okay, I'm not going to say it was the first. Like in Sega Genesis, there was a Batman the Animated Series game where you could play as co-op Batman and Robin. Yeah. And my brother and I played that game till Kingdom Come. Like, it's so amazing. But since Sega Genesis all the way after, this was the first Batman game I remember like super looking forward to. And I mean, it gave us a new form of storytelling, and it redefined combat. Like, to this day, games are still aping the combat system from Arkham Asylum. I mean, it's nothing but good memories for me, especially this first one. I have some mixed feelings as the game, mostly story-wise, as the game's progressed. Mm-hmm. But the OG Arkham Asylum, it's just as like warm and fuzzy as when I think about it.
Yeah.
Was this, and this is a question we got from Hybrid 210 Gaming, was it your first game in the series?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
so you played them in order.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
beautiful. Okay. Because I couldn't imagine. I know a couple people who played Arkham Knight first.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Try to go back to, Arkham Asylum after that feeling of freedom would have to be hard. But then, too, yeah, a lot of other reasons why going back would be tough. Mm-hmm. So, but what about you, Daniel?
So I was late to the party in that I stopped playing video games from about 2005 to about 2011. I just didn't play. I was heavy into other things.
Is that when you got married? Was 2011?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got married in 2011. So that was the time where I was, out.
Domestic life brought you back.
Yeah, it really did. So I was out, doing my things. I did a lot of theater and stuff like that. So the last superhero game that I played, because when I was playing Halo, I was playing a lot of Halo and doing that kind of stuff. But I played Spider-Man 2 for the PS2. I loved that game. And then the other Batman game that I played was Batman Rise of Sun Tzu. That was on the...
I think it was N64.
Was it N64?
Was that the Batman Beyond one?
No, it was a Batman animated series. You can play as Tim Drake, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Batman. So four-person game.
So I didn't play that one. Yeah,
I thoroughly had fun with that game. But before that, I played a lot of just what types of games that I usually play. But this game was probably the first game because Jay was talking about it. A lot of my friends were talking about it. And finally, as a wedding gift, Jason, my cousin, and a couple of others went in and they bought me a PS3. And this was one of the games that they bought me.
Oh, yeah.
So this was 2011. And that year, Arkham City came out in October. So I got married July. I was done. I think I platinumed this game
by
October.
For sure.
Yeah. By October. And I was one of the people that went to like the midnight release of Arkham City. But this game, my first impressions to me, I just got married. My wife, she's like, okay, I'm going to bed. Okay, cool. And I stay up to like 2 a.m. Just a lot of fun. I loved the originality of it because again, the games I played before this, when it had a superhero genre, was very confined in its movements, confined in a lot of things. But what this did was it took one aspect of Batman Arkham Asylum and made it its own entity, which around the same exact time frame, and I always have to go back to one of my favorite Batman writers is Scott Snyder and what he did with Black Mirror, with Gotham being its own entity, its own living, breathing thing with its own secrets. And it took Arkham just as a building and gave it its own lore that maybe I didn't read about in the comic books before that, but it just expounded upon this, and it gave Batman so much more depth as a relatable character, because there's only so much that the animated series and the comic books can do for you when you're just watching it. You're reading it. Now I'm controlling this, and I'm doing
that
all
level
these
of interactivity.
Exactly
makes it that much more immersive.
Yeah, and I just felt like hook, line, sinker, and then come on, Conroy and
we'll get
Hamill.
into that,
Yeah,
of course.
that
is prime. So many people mentioned that as the flagship reason to play this.
Oh,
game. Yeah. So, something you brought up, how previous Batman games, previous superhero games had been confined either in terms of what you could do or in terms of representing past versions of the character, whether it was, this is a game based on Batman 89, or this is, a game that's based on the TV show, the cartoon, what have you. But this one is interesting in that it's not specifically tied to a canon for the character. Now, there's a lot of things that are involved in this universe, as we know, like, Barbara Gordon being shot and things like that. Spoilers, I guess.
Right.
But
spoiler for a game that came out 10 years ago.
Spoilers for a storyline that's been around since, the 80s? Killing Joke?
89?
Yeah. 89? Yeah. Shame on you if you didn't know that. But one question that we thought of was, what Batman does this feel the most like to you?
For me, when I say this, it's honestly mostly limited to this first game. I know Paul Dini was involved in the story writing of this game, and I know in later games he eventually left the series. But for me, this one has a lot of feel to not just because of the voice acting, but I think just the world building that Paul Dini brought to the table. It has some aspects of Batman, the animated series, in a sense, but there's a certain level of like humanity still in the character. Like he's stoic and he's all these things, but he's not like, I am toxic masculinity embodied.
Does he say that in the animated series?
He just might.
Yeah, so I'm actually with you there that I think that this game, and I like that you made that distinction, this first game feels like an extension of Batman the Animated Series to me.
Yeah.
It feels like, its emphasis on the villains. It's certainly, like you're getting at, its psychological exploration of Batman is much deeper and more profound than what we saw in Batman the Animated Series, where he was kind of, like the Super Friends level Batman, where he's like, he's out there, he's doing his thing, but you never too much get in his head. There's a couple episodes like I Am the Knight, I think, where Commissioner Gordon was
Right.
shot.
Yeah.
Where, he thinks about quitting. One of my favorite episodes from the Batman animated series. And if you're listening to this and you've never listened to Batman the animated series, or watched, rather.
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame again, doubly, because you need to watch that series. There is particularly one fan I know who's not a Batman fan. And I was like, have you ever seen the Batman animated series, though? So
Is he like, no, I've just seen Christian Bale.
yeah,
can understand.
This series
I love Christian Bale, by the way.
could very much make you a Batman fan. Right?
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. I think this game, I agree with Jason that it took the, because look, right before the animated series, a lot of the canon, or not even canon, a lot of the pop culture or nerd culture, what was really prominent at the time was, a lot of Frank Miller. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the animated series came out like, 91 to 95? No.
Dude, we're still trying to shake off the stank of Frank Miller.
Shake off the stank of Frank Miller. I love that so much. There's so many Frank Miller apologists out there with their Frank Miller t-shirts and tattoos.
Yeah.
And I was just like, let him go. Let him go.
Yes, let it go.
Yeah.
But right before that was this era of Batman kind of finding himself, because before that it was this campiness of all the way from 66 all the way up to, I'd say, about maybe Broken Bat, and that was the early 90s, right?
What do you mean? And the
I'm just meaning
campiness?
that this took the fundamental foundations of what Paul Dini did in the animated series and took it a step further for mature audiences in the graphic design and all that. But it took what people knew and loved from when they were children and expounded upon that in the place. And I think, and I just looked it up right now, I think they took inspiration for this game. They took what Paul Dini did, but they also took inspiration from the Arkham Asylum comic book from Grant Morrison and Dave McKean, as well as the Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo Joker story. And they kind of confined all of that into one giant story. And there were some other things probably in the midst of that, but it was I think it was heavily influenced by those comics.
Yeah.
And
Serious House on Serious Earth, right?
Right. And so mostly when it comes to the lore of that, but also just more depth when it came to Joker.
Yeah.
Not so much of I create smiling fish. You know, he still had this little bit of a, he took the, the Bane serum and so on and so forth in the game, and was kind of this,
Which was arguably I was going to bring it up as in my opinion, the weakest aspect of the game.
right. But I mean, but it's confined to Joker, and that's his overall plan. But there was so much more involved with his characterization throughout the game.
Right. Right at the beginning, you remember when he springs the trap. So
Yeah.
basic plot summary, right? He catches the Joker, takes him to Arkham Asylum. Joker escapes because it turns out he had this whole thing planned where he was going to get caught.
Right.
He gets back into the asylum to steal the Titan formula, right?
Yep.
I think it was called Titan.
Yeah.
And then he dares Batman right then and there to kill him and end the whole thing.
Yeah.
And of course he doesn't. And he says something like, "That's why you're so fun," or something like that. But but getting that into that, that you can't really stop me.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do. Because what are you gonna do? Put me in jail? I'm already here.
Right.
And so at the end, he beats the crap out of him and stuff. But I like what you're getting into with the Batman stuff. And originally, I was gonna kind of foist this section into later in the podcast, but I think naturally, this is a good point to talk about just Batman himself and this game's place in the Batman mythos. So to kind of feed in a question right here, why is he the coolest hero?
One of the because we can go with one of the
Okay, I just wanted to phrase it in a controversial way, Well, just think, a decade and a half ago, nobody cared who Iron Man was, and then back then it was, why is he the coolest hero?
That is true.
Right.
That is true.
But
I just know for Jay and I, Batman is my number 2.
Yeah. Okay, Superman is your favorite, right?
Actually,
or are we
Batman's my
talking
number
just
3.
coolest factor?
Coolest to me is still Dick Grayson.
Okay.
Complex, Bruce, the most complex.
Yeah.
The most inspirational is Soups, hands down.
Yeah.
But it's those 3. Those are the 3.
Okay.
They're all tied for first. I'll say that. They're all
Okay.
tied for first in my book. Bats, Dick, and Clark.
Okay, and please don't say Dick. We refer to him as Richard Grayson. Just kidding. Go ahead, Jason. What's your how do you rank Batman in the canon of superheroes?
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar to Danny. I think that for me, my all-time favorite, American superhero is definitely Nightwing, Dick Grayson, and Batman is probably number 2. I mean, I love Batman, and one of the powerful things about his character is that we've seen probably more so than just about any other superhero is his adaptability.
Yeah.
You can almost throw him in just about any situation and reinvent him for what it needs, what it calls for. And that's like speaks to the power of the character. But with that, we can see that the era, I think, let me start over with this. Because of Batman's humanity, whatever is in the popular mindset of people at the time is kind of what defines Batman.
Yeah.
So when we look in the 30s, he was very noir. When we look in the 50s, it was very like science fiction. In the 60s was very campy. 70s was starting to return with Dennis O'Neil. That's when Ra's al Ghul was created, or Raish, or whatever how you want to pronounce it. And so throughout time, he continues to adapt to the mindset of the people at the time. But with that, eventually you come to a place where you start to have your favorites. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's times where it just gets taken to an extreme that I'm not a fan of. And so the extreme, like uber dark, I see some comic people refer to him as like Bat God, where he's like completely unstoppable, completely inhuman.
Sort of like, what was that? Like the Justice League run, Grant Morrison?
Yeah.
Was it where he was like, really, I don't think you could single-handedly silent take down 7 aliens. Right. Like and the rest of the Justice League is incapacitated. You can't do that. So that's where the writer is
yeah,
making
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that appeals to it. And plus, I always joke with Danny, and I think modern day creators are doing a pretty good job reinventing superhero costumes as they, as time goes on and they start to make their appearance in like live action mediums. Mm-hmm. But I think there's something just so inherently cool. Like, we're not even talking about the character of Bruce Wayne, but just like the look and everything about Batman. He's basically like a ninja with this like massive flowing cape. He just looks like so amazingly awesome.
Okay, and so here's a question that I just thought of. What is one thing you could do to make Batman cooler? Give him an eye patch. It's like that is not even a joke. I mean, imagine. Okay, so he's a ninja. What about a ninja pirate? Like that, he would be galactically cool. And then, there's been so many different iterations and versions of Batman.
Right.
That it's great. The character is really amorphous like that. He can be so many things in a comedy. He can be in a very dark story like Arkham Asylum. He can be somewhere in the middle. He can be in Super Friends and telling kids not to run with scissors and wear their helmets while they ride their bikes.
I think that Superman. I think that Batman, his best place though. Like I agree with Jason that like he's so transcendent in that he could be adaptable in any time frame. But I think for me, the reason why, and let's go back to your question, he's the coolest, is that and again, this is kind of the stereotypical answer, but I don't think it's the stereotypical depth, that he is what we all wish we can be.
Right.
And Superman is like, oh, I'll never be that cool. I'll never be that truthful or that great of a human. This is like, physically, mentally pushing it to the limit, but also doing things that I don't even think I could do. Like there are so many times that I was like, dude, I would have killed Joker a long time ago. Yeah. And he keeps pushing the boundaries of, and not pushing the boundaries of his own limitations, but keeps pushing the boundaries of human limitations on just simple patience for himself and for the time.
Yeah.
You know, so like Joker's done so many times to kill, and there's so many storylines that have been like, if you would have killed me long ago, I would have saved a whole bunch of, you know, you would have saved hundreds of thousands of people. But because everyone else is not, I don't see any other hero that is faced with that doesn't have like flash super speed or something like that.
Right.
He is at his own physical liabilities or limitations, should be mental limitations and everything, but he still transcends that. He still goes beyond that.
Yeah.
And that he still defies the evil, and he tampers with it, but he won't go as so far. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think he's the coolest, because he is relatable to us in the sense of like, he's pure human, 100%, but all the things that come about that, the things that he faces, he always has a contingency for. Even his man. I'm not talking about like, what was that Batman of
Zur-En-Arrh?
Yeah.
I was like, that's much. That's a little much.
That was too much. That's what you guys are talking about.
Wait, okay, so what was that? That was a mental, like, hypnotic contingency plan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He
Yes.
could still operate as Batman if Bruce Wayne was incapacitated.
Exactly.
Which is such a cool idea.
Oh, horribly executed.
But yeah,
it was horribly.
When you watch it, you're like, wait.
And I think they just wanted to bring back the rainbow suit from like the 50s.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, just that. I mean, if I think back, like the time in my brain where I think of like Batman as a child and watching the animated series is one with the Riddler, and he's making all those toys, and he captures him in this room, and all the windows start closing, and he's like, boom, I jumped into the safe. You're like, dude, he's a modern day Houdini. You know, like he's like he's hardcore kind of thing. And
and they kept that too from the viewer, right? Up until the end of the episode. He's
exactly.
I jumped into the safe.
And you're like, of course you did.
Yeah. So many times I'm out in public with my wife, and I'm like looking at like exits and stuff, and she's like, what would happen to this? I'm like, well, I do this and this and this. She's like, you watch way too many superheroes.
That's awesome.
But it's just that his mind is always turned on to the point where he knows where he has to be into this little thing.
Okay, I love that. I can't remember where it was or what I read or what I watched, but it was the concept that Bruce Wayne cannot turn detective mode off.
Right, yeah.
He can't stop being Batman mentally.
Yeah.
A couple of things I wanted to unpack questions for you from things you just said. So in terms of Superman being an inspiration and Batman being an inspiration, it just dawned on me that they inspire but in different ways, right? Yeah. So Superman inspires in terms of ideals and virtues that you're like, wow, I want to be that merciful, or I want to be that selfless, or that full of grace, or whatever toward people, and that loving and endearing. But you wouldn't say those things with Batman.
No,
like, I want to be that loving.
Yeah, he would just put his head to the grindstone. Like I wish I can go through the fire as much as you do.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things.
Yes, and certainly, his endurance. So it's almost like they represent different virtues of humanity, right? And a lot of writers certainly play around with like a dualistic concept between Batman and Superman. But and I like that you phrased it in terms too of Batman inspiring you, to be at your best physically and at your best mentally, But then another thing you brought up was something that I've seen come under fire a couple times, and I think that this touches on something that we mentioned the last time I was here in the lovely, bejeweled Opinioneering studios that we're sitting in right now.
That's very gracious.
Dude, are you kidding? Coca-Cola? That's super awesome. And I can't even remember what I was. Oh, okay. We were talking about anti-heroes, right? And I remember, Jason, specifically, you were like sort of that hot topic era of superhero-dom. Now, with Batman, a couple times I've seen people sort of scoff at his aversion to guns and taking justice into his own hands as far as killing people. In a way to say, well, Batman's weak to do that, or it's nonsensical, it's illogical, it's selfish on his part to do that, considering how many times a costumed supervillain breaks out and wreaks havoc. And I've seen people compare Batman to the Punisher and say the Punisher is more of a hero than Batman because the Punisher is willing to get his hands dirty. Now, I don't I don't really agree with that, but I want to know if you do or not, and in what words you'd phrase that. So let's go. I know you sound like you're bubbling over inside, Daniel.
He is too. He's trying to go to me.
Okay, so let me feed it to you in a less long way. The Punisher is better than Batman because he kills people.
Okay, so you look like you're about to get a refill right now, so I'll go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the Punisher is better for killing people. That as a statement in general is just dumb. Like, in my opinion, I'm sorry, but like, oh, he's better because he kills people. Okay, well, a lot of people kill people. Doesn't mean that they're better human beings than others.
Right.
Okay, what is the reasoning for them for killing people? Okay, let's take the next step. They kill people that will inevitably go beyond, they're villains and they're gonna kill other people, kind of a thing. You as an individual, meaning the listener, whoever thinks this idea, you might have that for your own worldview and what you think it is. Okay, you might think that that's the better thing. Now, you have to take that this characterization from its conceptual lore. That's not him.
Yeah,
it's just not. So you can't say, "Oh, Batman's not as good." Well, okay, take that up with Chuck Dixon, dude. Not Chuck Dixon. What's his name? Who's the original person?
Bob Kane.
Bob Kane. That's Bob Kane. Take that.
Who's Chuck Dixon?
Chuck Dixon was the main writer in the late '90s who helmed all the Batman books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry if you're listening, Chuck. I didn't know who you were. I apologize.
So to me, if your statement is, well, Punisher's better because he kills people, well, that's not Batman. That's like literally saying that someone who's made a choice in their life that you're not as good as a person as this person because this person chooses to do something. Well, that person's lore, that person's background, his upbringing
is different.
Yeah. Totally different. Yeah. Okay, the reasons why he does things now. It's easy to kill people. You know how easy it is for him? Like, the Joker's a twig, quite literally. Like, it's easy for you to kill someone.
Right.
The hard thing to do is not to kill them. And the heroes are heroes because they choose to do the hard thing and not the easy thing.
The easy way out.
The easy way out. The easy way out is to just kill him. But then, again, and then people will be like, oh, yeah, and then probably the next statement he's going to say is, but then he become just as bad. Quite literally. Especially with Batman. People that are in the extremes are on the fringes. If Batman did it or if Superman did it. Now, if Flash accidentally killed someone from his super speed and he, knocks someone off their balance and they accidentally, snap their neck on the sidewalk, $1 million baby style, I don't think he'd really oh my gosh kind of a thing. But the people that are on the fringes of the extremes, so Superman's on one extreme of he is this beacon of hope, and that's why there's pieces of Man of Steel that I'm just kind of a thing. But then the other side, like I said earlier, Batman already teeters that line. Okay, he does not want to cross over that line because he knows that when he crosses that over, the Punisher better run. Hide your kids, hide your wife, because if that's the case, I'm pretty sure Punisher has probably killed someone that didn't deserve it.
Right. So that brings up an interesting thing there, too. So and I use this line of reasoning with somebody, if Batman killed the Joker, would he have to kill Poison Ivy?
Yeah, he'd kill,
Would he have to kill the Penguin?
It doesn't stop.
Would he, and then would he have to kill Carmine Falcone? Would he literally have to just, and this is a Punisher problem, I don't read the Punisher, so I don't really care, that's his problem, but at what point then does Batman draw the line? Is it everybody who's murdered? Does he invent his own, logistics for capital punishment? Does that affect his relationship with the police? And so on. So it's a complex issue.
It sounds like the person that asked that question just watched Daredevil season 2, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is cool."
Oh, dude, there are Daredevilites out there. But what do you think, Jason?
Man, a great question. I'll do my best to try and share some thoughts in a quick manner. So in the 90s, as we know, talking about Daredevil and Frank Miller and Dark Knight Returns, and the 80s were a really dark period. And there's this really interesting two-part episode by this podcast called Reply All. If you're not listening, you need to. But it just kind of
after you finish listening.
After you finish listening to this, of course.
Oh, thank you. My goodness.
But
that's why we're gentlemen.
Anyways, it was talking about crime in New York in the 80s and how it was unbelievable crime rates, and that's what spawned Hell's Kitchen and Daredevil and starting some of this darkness that we saw. And in the mid 90s. the current Batman editorial head was Dennis O'Neil. And he came up with this experiment to just kind of like get to the heart of Batman in light of all that's happening, the darkening of superheroes. And everybody is familiar with it, but maybe not everybody knew what was going on behind the scenes. So that's how we get Bane and the breaking of Batman, because his ultimate goal was, we're going to get Batman as a chess piece off the board, and we're going to bring in Azrael to replace him. Now, Azrael, for those of you from the Arkham series, may know some of his character, but in the comics, he was the person that Batman chose as his replacement after Bane.
Is it John Paul Valley, right?
Yeah.
He's back, but not in that same canon.
Right. And so he replaced Batman, but as this like, whereas Batman's like ninja status, relatively like simple weaponry and whatever. John Paul Valley was this, he's shooting like batarangs out of his arms and he's murdering people and he's got these giant metallic claws. And Dennis O'Neil's thought experiment was, people will still see that this is an imposter and the true Batman is someone who has a code of ethics. And so I read an interview with him years afterwards where they asked him, like, what would happen if people loved Azrael and they rejected Bruce Wayne? And he was like, that's always something that I feared, but I believed the best.
Ah, that's beautiful.
And so he went ahead, had the storyline where Azrael came in, replaced him, only for eventually the fans to clamor, like, bring back Bruce. And so Bruce and Nightwing and Robin, they had to go, take out Azrael. And it was this great story. And so I think that even though there are some, arguments to be made for, but if you only killed the Joker, then this. But in order for Batman to have a sense of morality and to function still as a part of society, I think he has to acknowledge that there are structures in place. Batman, I don't think, has ever seen his role as judge, jury, and executioner. There's branches of government for a reason,
right,
for checks and balances and power. And I think that Batman realizes that his role is simply to be, even though he operates outside of the police department to an extent, he still cooperates with Commissioner Gordon. Mm-hmm. But there still is a place where he knows, in order for society to function and for himself, like, he has to have limitations.
Right.
And there has to be still a place where ethically he is bound by a certain code. Because like you said, like, where does it stop? Like, if you kill this person, well, you can make the same argument for that person. And sure, we could also, but Joker's the worst.
Yeah. But then it's like, do you knock the old lady down who got a traffic violation?
Right.
Exactly.
And I think
Where
one
does it
of
stop?
some of my favorite stories, and I think this might have been Paul Dini and Alex Ross, had this like giant, like oversized book where it was like mostly meant to showcase Alex Ross's art, but it was on Batman. And in the story, you kind of see Batman take out these criminals, and there's this like young kid.
War on Crime?
Yeah, War on Crime.
That's a good book.
Yeah, super cool. But it just kind of takes it down to like, let's not view it as when we take away just this thought of war on crime as this like entity that I must vanquish evil, and instead, well, who perpetrates crime? Humans. And humans have lives and reasons why they got there. And in that story, it kind of explores some of that as Batman is trying to follow the life of this young kid. And he realizes, like, this isn't just some monster who's, let me just whatever, but instead, like, there's a life here.
So that's interesting, with Batman being interested in rehabilitation to an extent. If you said that Batman was the Punisher, would he have killed Tim Drake? Tim Drake was the one that stole the wheels.
Oh, Jason Todd.
That was Jason Todd.
Yeah,
Todd
yeah.
stole the wheels, yeah.
Would he? Who would have saved? He would have saved a lot of.
He would have
people
killed Tim on accident. Oh, sorry. The dick
He's
comes
like,
in.
"Stealing
He's
a
like,
Batmobile?
"Oh, that was
Wheels?"
actually Jason, Bruce.
Oh. Okay, so would he have had? Like, why does Batman take the Robins in? To an extent, then he cares about the rehabilitation and the redemption of individuals.
Well, I think The Dark Knight, the second movie, actually touches on it really well, especially even with the Joker. It's not about the individual. It's about the fight for Gotham's soul. It's not about like, oh, this person committed this, or this person committed this, or this person committed. It's the big picture that Bruce is trying to inspire on some level of not to be fearful. Because there will always be people there to fight back and not do the same exact things that you are being afraid of. You know, like what Jason said what Jason said of like, you know, oh goodness gracious, it just left me. But overall, it's not the individual that commits this crime, but he wants to inspire the people around them. And at the end of the day, they're human beings. And the fight for the soul of Gotham. Oh, I'm sorry, like my train of thought totally left me.
Is it that you're trying to say that the war is bigger than himself?
Right? He doesn't sacrifice the battle, which the battle that he himself faces is the Joker. That's my battle.
Right.
At the sake of the war for Gotham's soul.
Right.
Because so many people, like Jason just said, the war on crime, you know, this person that is being inspired and so on and so forth, and then that story behind, you know, Azrael and all that, people were saying like, no, that's not it, because people want more. And that's not to say that the Punisher doesn't have its place.
Right.
When I watched Daredevil season 2, that was great character conflict within Matt Murdock. I think there is a place for the Punisher. In that there are, you know, a good substantial amount of people that believe that, and that's totally fine.
And you're not devaluing. That's a good point to make. You're not devaluing the character by just saying this is what Batman is for. What
exactly.
He's about. But I like
that's why he stands the test of time.
Yeah, and I like what you're getting at too, where that the symbol of Batman means something for his city, and were he to cross that line, it's not just it's a selfish thing that, you know, I don't want to cross this line. But tarnishing that symbol means the end of Batman's functionality in the battle for Gotham's soul.
Well, just look at the end of The Dark Knight. He's like, let them think that I did this.
Right.
And that's why he went on hiatus and he left.
Yeah.
Because people thought like, oh.
Yeah, he's no longer a protector.
He's no longer
now
a protector.
he's
done.
He's a predator.
Exactly.
And Batman is a vigilante, but he's not an anarchist, right? An anarchist would be, well, let me operate completely without the sense of, you know, governmental
checks
structure.
and balances,
yeah,
or
all
anything
of that
like that
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, trial by jury and any of that. So yeah, I think we keep coming back to the core of the character being a certain way, and that's probably why the Batfleck, Ben Affleck's Batfleck, right, rubbed so many people wrong. And I wish, you know, that they'd sort of had opportunity to redeem that in a meaningful and an intelligent way, but.
Have you seen DC Titans yet?
That is as it is. I have not.
I'll give you my logins if you want to watch it.
Ooh, logins? Can you give them to me right now?
Right now, you want to share?
So let's take this back to this game, though. That was beautiful Batman talk, and I could do that all day.
Wait, was that Punisher question one that's on Twitter?
No.
Oh, okay.
It popped in my head as you were talking about it.
Well, I've had
the conversations before.
Yeah, I've had the same exact conversation, especially after Daredevil season 2 came out. People were like, dude, I've never thought of it that way. I'm like,
yeah, no.
Those questions need to be asked,
right?
Though. They need to be asked.
Please ask those questions, but don't. One of my main gripes with the state of modern conversation is people think that when a question pops in their head, it's the first time that question was asked. It happens to me all the time. Yeah, I have theology questions and theology conversations. I just be like, you realize like people have been writing about this for like 2,000 years?
Moses, can God create a rock?
If you're talking about like limitations on God or like things that like, here was a question. Somebody was like, well, God lacks sin, so he's not infinite. I was like, no, I'm sorry, but like, no, okay, like. Infinite. Anyways, yeah. Don't want to make this a theology podcast all of a sudden. We got deep from that Batman talk. That was beautiful.
Back to the game,
good stuff. But anyways, back to the game. Couple other things that one thing that we wanted to touch on was treatment of the characters. The way this game felt timeless and different at the same time. A lot of, I know you mentioned earlier, Jason, before we started recording, just something about the character design. What were some of your thoughts on that?
I mean, just moving from a medium of, I mean, even comics, you know, where it's like 2-dimensional drawing to now entering into this like photorealistic 3D worlds where it's not necessarily live action, but my goodness, it sure comes close, right? And so they had to redesign a lot of characters in a way that just really kind of fit their character motifs, but at the same time were a little more practical and realistic. And so to that end, I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at, if we were to just stay on Batman and Joker for a second, I love that when you look at the bat suit, you can see like the little rivets and the little
For the armor?
Yeah, the armor. I love that. I love that it's not, let's just try and make it look like spandex.
Right. It's neither that. No, I don't like the fully armored Batman suit. I don't like where he looks like a black Iron Man.
No.
Suit.
Yeah.
You know, I prefer it to look a little more agile.
Yeah.
You know, and not like a tank.
Yeah.
Like on Justice League. Have you seen Justice League? I think you mentioned last time you haven't seen it. Okay. There's a part on
For the sake
Justice
of his
League.
soul.
Yeah. For the sake of Gotham's soul and Jason's. There's a part on Justice League where it's an upshot and Ben Affleck walks around in like this new bat suit that he's going to take for the final confrontation. And the first time I saw the movie, I was just like, whoa. Because he looked so wide. Yeah. He looked like he couldn't move his arms. Like because
like in a Christmas story, I can't put my arms down.
Essentially, I mean, they put him in a tank.
Yeah.
You know, a walking tank. And I just don't think that that's who Batman is. Batman's got to be that ninja that can meld in the shadows. But if you can't crouch, how are you going to meld in the shadows, you know? And he couldn't look like he could squat in that thing.
You can look at he walked.
Yeah. But I like too with the character design in the game how they sort of got away from the Halloween costume look of the comics, a lot of the older comics, and got into, like you mentioned, a practicality to a lot of how these characters function. So Joker, you know, has this sort of the threads, the custom suit and all that. And Killer Croc is just like a guy with pants on who's like ginormous.
I think they did a good job on Croc's character design and like that whole like scene in the sewer.
Oh yeah, that was great level.
Amazing.
Yeah, the tension is out of control. Another couple things about the game. That one thing I really loved was how it gave room for the detective in Batman in Arkham Asylum. Yeah, because so many iterations of the character missed that. You know, that like there was even something, as much as I love the Dark Knight trilogy, he does do some detective work in there.
Just in the second one. Though.
Right. But I never felt, because he leans so heavily on Fox, I never felt that he was that, you know, encyclopedic brained engineer, detective, martial arts expert. Yeah. To where he's like, you know, hey, Fox, can you analyze this bullet for me? Or Alfred, can you set up like this ballistics test for me? Because I don't know how to log in. But
is it capital?
Wait, L or 1? Oh. So I love the detective stuff. That was something that, and we'll get into a little bit of Spider-Man stuff here too. I don't want to drag this on too long. I think we've seen, so as you mentioned earlier, Jason, this is kind of like a genre-defining game. And because of that, we see detective modes in other games that doesn't really make sense. You know, like, why does Mary Jane have a detective mode in... Okay, so like I get the spider suit has like, you know, tech in it now. It's not just spandex. But why on earth can Mary Jane like see through walls and stuff? Why does Joel see through walls? I was just going to say Joel. In The Last of Us. I mean, well, so it's not really seeing, right? It's the auditory listening.
He listens, but he can see like their silhouettes. I'm like, what are you, Daredevil? Like it would have been cool if he's like in a hallway and like he listens, but you just see like thump, thump, thump.
Or you really had to listen. Like let's say, you know, your TV's got surround sound and you have to take advantage of that. That'd be
which there was times that I couldn't listen. Like it was so scary. I was like,
But it's like the detective mode makes sense for Batman because he's the world's greatest detective.
Right.
But in some games that I've seen, I was like, why can you see their skeletons? Like, do you have X-ray vision in your bangs, Mary Jane? I don't know. So stuff like that irritates me. Yeah. But the detective stuff, giving room to that, really good. But on top of all that, the stealth in Arkham Asylum is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just the way that you can mess with Like, tell me you guys messed with some of the henchmen, right? Like, you pick them off in a corner and then you just tease a guy. You know, like, if you hit him with a batarang and let him get back up, he's like, hey, man, what are you doing?
I'm pretty sure you and Jason are the more masochistic. Like me, I just wanted to get in and get done. Like, Jason plays, like, Grand Theft Auto 5 just to see, like, buses explode.
Oh, nice.
Like he just does things like that.
Or like back in the day on Metal Gear, like the OG Metal Gear Solid, like you could totally like, there's all the like little stormtrooper looking guys, and you're like, you knock on the wall and they're like, what's that noise? And they come around, but then I like run around the other side and then like plant a C4 on them.
Yes, the stuff like that. So, and you could do a lot of that here too with like the trap setting and all that sort of things. But freaking the ability to have the enemies react to you and see like their heart rate spike and
that was
like
cool.
that. That's really cool.
I'm gonna have to put just a little not amendment, just a little note here. That did you all play the Batman Begins game? The one that came out right after the movie did, with Christian Bale as the voice. So did Morgan Freeman. It was all contractually obligated.
Yeah, I did play that. It was on PS2.
Did not.
Right. It actually did those first. That was the first time that I saw like, oh, you can put fear into people and you can see their fear levels, and you can throw a batarang, something like, what's that kind of a thing. That was the first time I saw it.
Oh, really?
But that wasn't a more realistic kind of a thing. I didn't hate that game, but Arkham Asylum more specifically took it to the next level, and the crouching up top, and then the takedowns when you flip underneath, and it was just more engaged into the.
Well, down to the facts that when you go to replay missions, like they specifically call those like predator missions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Making Batman the Predator is so awesome. Yeah.
But it was so good that like. It did really. Okay, so here's the thing. There's different ways that you can look at Batman in this moment. You can look at Batman as you, the viewer, watching this and as controlling him. But then you also have to take a minute to take yourself out and and this is what I do. I don't know if anyone else does. If you were in the henchman's shoes, right? If you're in the henchman's shoes, you've probably never seen Batman before. You've only heard stories. So the certain types of takedowns that they had was more of this lore of this like he like goes under like he flips underneath a gargoyle to zip down to bring him back up. Yeah. So it actually does instill fear. Yeah. And it's not just like, oh, I swoop down and I take out all these guys. Yeah. You got to literally plan this thing out to make it seem more. It was the theatrical. Right. It was very theatrical.
And how the game forced you to rely on that theatricality. Ooh. I got it out of me. Was important because some of the little segments where you had to engage with the henchmen were difficult, especially if you made a mistake, and then they're all just like, "Oh, he's over there," and they blow you up. You know? Yeah. So, and that's a great point. You would have to imagine what it would be like, if you're in a group of guys and the wall blows up, and a human being comes through, pulls you back in, and then disappears. Yeah. A human being dressed as a giant bat. Like you would
muscular bat.
Yeah, right. The beefiest bat ever. Bat AS beeficalis.
And I think that's where Spider-Man, and I'm sorry, you touched on it just a little bit of that, Spider-Man's suit and stuff like that. That's where I think they got it wrong in Spider-Man, where there was times where, they had, a hostage, and you had to go save the hostage, and you had to take down like 11 people. Yeah. I would get down to the 11th person, the one that was like not even close to the hostage. Right. And then he would see me like, kill the hostage. I'm like, I took out everyone. You're like 2 buildings away. Right. Like, how can you take?
There was a level of complexity that was stripped from the Spider-Man game. Right. So like Spider-Man could still do stealth takedowns, but certainly not at the variety in this game from 2009. Oh, right. And then also lacking that fear system where it's like, you had that last guy, but he's still just walking around like, nope, everything's fine. Yeah.
No, in this one you can hear like the voice, voice actor be like, oh my God, where are you?
Yeah, they start to like freak out. Yeah.
It was so good. Like again, from 2009, it had more complexity and depth in the player integration of what was happening than a game like Spider-Man that just came out 6 months ago.
Now, certainly, to be fair, again, Spider-Man does several things better than a game from 2009.
Very much so.
Right.
As this aspect of the stealth side of things and in those types of levels, I think I would give Batman the nod 100% on these. And I mean, again, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
come
imagine, too, if there were segments where you played as Dick Grayson in Arkham Asylum where you were just the kid and you had to crouch behind a bunch of boxes.
Well, you did in the Arkham City DLC.
See, I don't even remember that.
Yeah, there was
a Robin one.
There was
right?
a Nightwing one, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were still, like, they're armed as superheroes,
exactly.
right? So it
Yes.
wasn't like you're playing as Miles and Mary Jane.
No,
where you're just like, I got my Starbucks and I'm just gonna like sneak around. And
No,
all
like
these,
you are
armed.
like armed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
So stealth, we love it.
Yeah.
Now to come back to one of the chief best things about this game,
I think I know where you're going with this.
you know where I'm gonna go. The dynamic duo in real life, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
When you read the comic books, are those the voices you hear?
Without
a doubt.
Yeah,
like
without
you
a
can't.
doubt.
You
Yeah.
can't not have the Jay, you too? When you read the comics, is it Hamill and Conroy?
Yeah.
It's
I hear Michael Caine for
legendary.
Alfred.
Right.
Legendary.
Yeah, so somebody asked at Hal11K, they asked, who else could you realistically get to top those two legends?
No, not top.
Right.
Not top at all. I don't think you can have anyone.
Right.
What was his name? Troy?
Troy. Oh, Troy Baker? Was that Troy Baker? Are you talking about from Arkham Origins?
I think he did Joker in Arkham.
Troy
Origins.
Baker.
Yeah.
He did a pretty dang good job.
Right.
Sorry.
But that's all right. He did a good job. He did a better job than I could ever do in my life.
Oh, yeah. Or
But
even
it
the guy
felt
who
like
did
an
it from the
impression,
cartoons.
right? Because Mark Hamill was the one who pioneered that hello bats,
Yeah.
today we're going to do and all, like the up and down with the vocals.
Right.
But so when Troy Baker did it, you could tell it's not Hamill, of course, because they're different men. But it sounded like an impression. It's like he didn't take the character further or give anything new to it, the character, as much as I like his rendition.
Yeah,
It felt like an impression.
At that point, you have to go to the games director. You can't knock Troy Baker.
Of course.
Troy Baker did
He's
an
he's the
amazing
actor,
job.
yeah.
Right, he's the actor. The director told him, get to this as close as possible.
Right.
Now, again, who asked the question?
Hal11K.
Hal. I agree with Hal 100%. No one can top that.
Mm-hmm.
No one can top that. But I would, because we've seen other renditions of the Joker,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't fit, And let's just say, God forbid, Hamill passes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say. And we're not going to get that anymore, okay? Would I mind Troy Baker coming in as a tribute to him? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But we would know 100% that he and I watched some because here's the thing. Troy Baker was Joker, but Nolan North, who plays Nathan Drake, was Penguin throughout
Right.
all of them.
Yeah.
And there was an interview at Comic-Con that year. I was at Comic-Con that year. I have a signed from the producers a Batman Origins mural. Only 200 made. It's in my room.
Oh, nice.
It's really dope. And I was asking him a lot of questions, and he's like, well, no, what we wanted to do was execute X, Y, and Z, and he talked to me a little bit, so I got a little bit more insight on that. But then I saw an interview at Comic-Con with them too, and Troy himself said, like, hey, I didn't want to top this, but I did want to become as close, because it's within the same
universe, and that makes sense.
It's in the same
Right.
universe.
It's a prequel. Origins is a prequel, so it makes sense to do that voice.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So imagine if he came out at doing an impression of Jack Nicholson, you'd be like, well, why?
Right.
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 Yeah.
And even in that, if let's say, like I said, Hamill passes.
Mm-hmm.
Even Troy and both Nolan North even said, like, no one can top that. Even Baker said, like, no one can top that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I want to give the nod to him. Like, there's, I can only, what does it say? Like, impersonation is the best form of flattery. Not
Yes.
impersonation.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the
saying,
proverb
right,
that
right,
you're
right, 'cause
saying.
there's a lot of people impersonating out there. It's not flattering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you're trying to do that. And even Nolan North, even him said, like, yeah, no one can talk that. And even
Imitation is the best.
Imitation,
word.
that's right.
Yeah, there it is.
But again, yes, that dynamic duo. When you read the comic books, when you go back, all I think is Conroy and Hamill, and you can't top that. I can't even watch Star Wars Star Wars, the newest one. I can't even go back and watch the old Star Wars and think like that's actually the Joker. Mark Hamill is more the Joker to me than he is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. Well, he's played the character more times. He's played the Joker more times than he's played Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. He's only played that one 4 times.
Yeah. And maybe a couple spin-offs in video games. I don't know. But he inhabits that character.
Very much so.
He made that version of that character. He made that voice. So it's like that belongs to him. And I totally get what you're saying with like, yeah, Troy Baker, I think, did an excellent performance. And if he needs to be the next version of that character, I'm behind that.
Yeah.
100%.
But you can tell, like, I told Jason, when you see some movies that they're trying to rip off something else, I'm like, it's kind of like a clone. You know it's not the same exact thing.
Right.
But it looks the same. It quacks like a duck. It looks like a duck, but it's not the same duck.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing.
Exactly. Well, start wrapping this up. We'll get into a couple final questions. Unless there was anything you wanted to add on Hamill and Conroy. Can you do an impression of Kevin Conroy?
Not really.
Come on.
He doesn't
It's for the kids.
Someone think of the children.
No,
you did a pretty good Hamill one, though.
I practice so
wasn't
much
bad.
all the time.
Is it like when you're driving to work?
Yeah, it is.
Like before coming here, we like in the mirror, like, come on, Moses, you got this. You got it. Come on.
Like Eminem style, 8 Mile. You have your hood on. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, no, I do that all the time. Yeah, my wife catches me making voices in the restroom. She's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "Myself."
Okay, is that a true story? Because my wife sees me talking to myself because I'm doing dialogue in my head between two people when I'm trying to either think of a story or writing a story or something like that, and she laughs her butt off. Like she's literally like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a nerd."
It's, you know, if you got it, flaunt it. So a question here, and we're talking about, Arkham Asylum again, but somebody asked at the Arcade Castle on Twitter, how many punches? What? I don't know. That's what he asked me, though.
How many punches does it take to take out that final Titan?
No, I said to him, I'm going to have to do my research on that question. I don't even know what you mean. How many punches are in the game? I looked up how many punches can average human take before they go down? And usually it's 1. But yeah.
Average human?
The average human. Like, come on, if I hit you in the face, you'd be dead.
Danny's like, you can see it in his eyes. He's like
yeah,
especially with like, some nice bourbon in me. Yeah, most definitely.
You go down. But if you hit me in the face, I'd go down too.
I don't know about that.
No, well, I put myself as average person. So, like, physical prowess, average.
I think that's a good answer to how many punches.
Yeah,
1.
That is,
From
1.
Batman, 4th.
Yeah.
He just needs to look at me and I'm passed
A
out.
4th, like one of those 1-inch punches, like the Bruce Lee punch?
No,
right?
dude, that's like 2 punches in one.
Oh,
like,
really?
he just needs to fist bump me and I'm dead.
Just your hand blows up. Yeah, as far as how many punches in the game, I don't know. So,
well, you kick a lot.
Yeah, you do. Here's another question at Rob Covell asked, whilst City is often considered the better game, what were the best aspects of Asylum which were lost in the sequel? Kind of a sister question to that, or brother question to that, or related question to that, from at Trash Lavania asked, do you think Asylum benefited from being more confined than City? I loved Asylum, especially the Killer Croc section, but City's larger, more open environment felt like it took away from what made Asylum so special. Jason?
It really might depend on what, in terms of gameplay, it probably depends on what you're looking for. In terms of gameplay, City opened up entire new avenues of gameplay that weren't possible before, from just feeling, to me, like what made me feel like Batman was just the fact that like I could like take down 20 dudes and then just like grapple hook straight up on, and you're just like, dude, I'm Batman, I'm gone.
I'll leave the corpses just rotting in the street. Yeah.
Or like just like, okay, now let me land on top of this like rooftop. Oh, there they are down there. And then like jump down like all rad and like take down 20. That was amazing. So, in terms of gameplay, I think hands down that opened up such incredible new avenues just to create hours of fun and new experiences and new ways for the player to embody the character and experience of Batman. But from a storytelling perspective, I think the more confined aspect of Arkham Asylum, because it had limitations, they also had to dig deeper. I guess it's almost like, I don't know, what's the illustration where it's like you could have, a pool that's like a foot deep but a mile wide, or, something that's like really deep. And so that's like a really
wide, a mile deep.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like Asylum had the opportunity to kind of spend more time on its limited cast and the background and lore, because it was all confined to one location. I think it was able to just explore a little more story-wise.
Yeah.
So it's like, what were you looking for in the game? They both furthered the series.
Mm-hmm. And Origins and Night, in that respect, kind of feel more like extensions of City.
Yeah.
More than Asylum.
Right.
Out of the four, Asylum seems to be the most distinctive.
Yeah.
Because of those things. I've always referred to Asylum as the claustrophobic one.
Right.
It's the one where you feel like you're trapped because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
You don't feel trapped in City or Origins or Night.
Right.
And so with that, there's a kind of linearity that lends toward a unique tension.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of tension in open games.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, here's the bad guy and here's what he's going to do. But you can go hunt down,
Riddler trophies.
Other bad guy, yeah. Or you could go chasing after Catwoman, or you can go and see what's happening at the courthouse. And that freedom, don't get me wrong, is extremely fun for gameplay, but it's a different kind of gameplay.
Yeah,
it doesn't lend toward tension at all. Yeah. But what's any of your opinions on that?
Like, I can't really go. I have to agree with that 100%. In that the claustrophobia aspect of the claustrophobic, of this game. So you have to look at it in one way. When this game came out, like Jason said, it was kind of a trendsetter when it came to a lot of gameplay and so on and so forth. So in going literally a mile deep underneath Arkham, the lore. So it's not just in the gameplay or the story or the characters. You didn't have a lot of Ivy or Harley or something. You had little aspects of it, but you went a mile deep in the lore of Arkham and how the tunnels underneath Arkham and stuff like that. So you got to learn more about Batman and the world around him. When I played City or Origins, I didn't learn anything new about Batman.
Right.
I didn't learn anything new about his surroundings.
Yeah.
When I played Arkham, I learned history. I was like, dang, this is actually really interesting.
The importance of the building.
Correct.
Right?
And its place in the city.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of, a lot of open world games do this. I'm not a fan of where you find like a little data piece, like a cell phone or a pamphlet or something just in the corner on the street, and you pop it open and it's a Wikipedia article. And I was like, I got to read this, or really long audio tapes too. What I like about the linearity, the focus in Arkham Asylum is its emphasis on the classic villains. Mm-hmm. You kind of got, like, by the time you get to Arkham Knight, you're like, okay, well, we all know who Arkham Knight is, right? When it first came out, It's like, of course.
I was shocked to hear that people were shocked to know who it was.
Right. It's like, what a twist. No, not really, guys. Unless they just didn't read comics.
Right, and that's not a slight to them, but like, no.
Right. It's like, who has time to read comics, right? But as far as this game, though, I like that it had the emphasis on the classic villains. I like that they gave you snippets. They gave you enough to tease the information regarding Amadeus Arkham, and then you got to pick up those cool supervillain interviews, right? Like the Scarecrow one where he's like, I'm interviewing you, Doctor, and you're just like, oh, this is creep-tastic, right?
We always found ourselves playing that game at like 12:30 at night.
Yeah, and it was borderline horror at a couple times, I mean, not just the Scarecrow sequences, which are renowned for being like, playing with your mind, but just like the atmosphere of the game. It's a very, very dark game, very creepy in a lot of ways, especially listening to like the supervillains talk about the things that they've done, and you're like,
and that's the thing, not
dark.
just the depth of Arkham. It went more in depth. I mean, I learned things about Killer Croc there that I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, because I like that it played while you were still going through, you know, the tunnels and so on and so forth. I did enjoy that. I liked how I agree with you 100%, where you're in a city and then in the corner there's this random USB drive with something on there. No, this was like a hidden compartment behind a, you know, like a bookshelf that Amadeus had. Or
yeah.
Like the first, you know, other people who in Arkham back in way in the day. It was a mystery, and then that adds the emphasis on Batman's detective mode, because on that game, Batman's detective mode, it matched. So in a fight, if someone pushes, you push back. If someone you know throws a punch, you throw a punch back. You don't like if someone's like, "Hey man," and you sock them in the face. Like, dude, escalation just went crazy. Yeah. This game matched the escalation, right? Batman's detective with. This is a mystery about this place. Now, Arkham City, it wasn't really a mystery. There was a mystery on the outside story, but it wasn't really a mystery about certain lores of people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then you had detective mode, and I was like, okay, now I'm just a detective. By the time it got to Arkham Knight, I'm sorry, this is just me, but it felt like an Assassin's Creed thing. Where every single game that came out, it was the same exact thing that came out.
Right,
go and do this, and they go and do this, go and do this.
Right, just a giant...
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say a giant map full of icons that tell you, like, here's a side mission, here's a collectible, here's a Riddler trophy, here's a... Yeah.
That's a beef that I have with modern trends.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, if I'm just going to play the minimap, with accompanying visuals on the rest of the screen, then that's not that interesting to me, you know?
And I don't mind seeing that with new characters.
Yeah.
Because you get to learn more. Like, when it's happened to Spidey, I didn't mind that.
Right.
I played in that game quite easily. Honestly, like, it was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
Batman, this is great. Now, if they came out with a new game of, you know, Flash, Wonder Woman, or something like that, I would still do the same exact tedious things I did in Assassin's Creed or Batman, because it's a new character now.
Right.
And I get it, like, oh, they're just piggybacking on other gameplays. But that's fine. Give me substance.
Yeah.
And I will do whatever you want me to. Just give me some substance.
Yeah, you will chase those pigeons. But yeah, I know. I mean, but yeah, no, that makes sense though. If you're invested in the characters, then you'll do it again. Now, those things may still be irritating. Like there were things in Arkham Knight that irritate a lot of people. Oh, yeah. The emphasis on the tank. No, you're just kind of like, well, it's done. Yeah. You know, I like the ending of Arkham Knight a lot. I love the Scarecrow a lot, and John Noble, right? I think, yeah. Just really the creepy stuff. But anyways, to move on, because we could get into Arkham Knight a lot. Something that kind of piggybacks on what we've been saying. This is from @MintPlays on Twitter. Is this game too dark, overdone on the drama, or do you feel it's properly balanced? Like, I mean, when this game first came out, I remember people being like, it's kind of too much. Really? You know? Yeah. But that faded fast. I mean, it's not like it, you know, it's not like Stank Miller where it kind of hung around for a while. Yeah, you can use that on your podcast.
Thanks.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it really has to do with your own sensibilities as the player and what kind of story you're looking for. I think that personally, it was a Batman that I liked and a story that I liked, and I am more drawn towards some of that psychological aspects. And like we said earlier, for instance, one of the things that I think it did well was it gave room for more than future games. It gave room for each villain to be in their element, almost like Mega Man style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, dude, I got that reference hardcore.
And so I really feel like we were talking earlier about Killer Croc and how that whole sewer scene was super claustrophobic, super terrifying, and it gave you the complete and total reality as the player that this is an overpowered villain that can crush you if they just merely manage to get a hand on you. And so I really appreciated all of that. I think from a storytelling perspective, it was psychologically dark, but I don't think it was too dark. I think it was balanced. I personally feel like future titles, I think Arkham Knight took things in a direction that I don't really enjoy personally.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think is that Arkham Asylum still maintained a very, like I said, it balanced on the razor's edge. I think there's times where I would have gone more towards the human side at moments, but I think my favorite version of Batman is he's still human underneath, and they're few and far between, but there still are vulnerabilities and fallibilities. And I think that Arkham Asylum did that well. I think Arkham Knight, by the time we got to that point, it was the ultimate like toxic masculinity power fantasy. Like throughout the course of that game, like every single person is painted as completely and utterly incompetent, and Batman has to save each one of them. He has to save Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, Batgirl, Nightwing, Tim Drake. Like everyone is worthless to him, and he's like, I am Batman. And I think it really kind of went down a different kind of darkness, not psychologically dark, but as in my opinion, just a dark in terms of embracing this aspect of like, to be a real man, you have no weaknesses. You are better than everyone. Like
almost like Lego Batman parody.
Yeah,
level.
it almost was.
Like, I don't have feelings, Alfred.
Right.
Did you like Lego Batman?
I loved Lego.
Wasn't it amazing?
That was
we're gonna
amazing.
talk about like favorite Batmen.
Yeah.
Arkham Asylums is up there. Batman animated series is up there. I like Michael Keaton's. I love Adam West for what he was, but I love Lego Batman.
Lego Batman is awesome.
That was so good, especially for the fan, where you're like, I get that reference.
Yeah.
You get every
Like
one of
when
them.
so my wife and I went inside. I beg your pardon. We'll get back to you on this. This is the Lego Batman rabbit trail. But my wife and I went to go see it. We're in our 30s. And we go and sit in the front row because we got there late. And I turn around, and it's like 6-year-olds all the way up behind us with their parents. And right at the beginning, they reference
6-year-olds with their parents.
Yeah, and I don't know. I didn't know that. I didn't poll their ages, but they looked like kids. Right?
Yeah,
It's a kids movie. But right at the beginning, they referenced the Prince concert from Batman '89, and I died. I laughed so hard. And I stopped laughing for a second and realized nobody else.
No one knew?
Or either that or they'd already finished their guffaws. But yeah. But I love Lego Batman.
It's so good.
Yeah, that
So
was
amazing.
That was great. Another kind of thing, and I like Jason's answer and just the balance of the things that he said. This is kind
totally
of
agree. It was
about
great.
balance here. This is from at Alex Sigsworth. I beg your pardon. Alex Sigsworth on Twitter,
Sigsworth.
who said, the structure is more clearly focused than its successors, but the streamlined gameplay gave me fewer options than I'd expect it to have in a game about being the Batman. It's a great game that has the Batman in it, but doesn't capitalize on everything I'd expect him to be able to do. And I think that's fair toward the sequels, where you kind of have more options. You have more of, like Jason was talking about earlier, where you can drop down and like tackle a mob in a second and then swoop back up.
Yeah.
But here's a question from at ABXY Reviews, who asked, what does it not do so well? Or what is not great about it? Or to phrase it more positively, what would you add or change to make Arkham Asylum even better?
Ooh. I mean, it won Game of the Year, so...
Yeah, I know. Like, I'd probably ruin it. You're like less Batman.
No, not less Batman. To me, Batman is amazing as an individual. And we've talked about that early in the episode, but I think Batman shines best in the different ways that we said, but even more so with his family. So
And that's missing from Asylum.
Yeah. They're totally 100%. You don't see Nightwing. You really don't see anyone. And I get it. And I do appreciate that in Arkham City. The escalation worked. Now it's a bigger scale. Now it's literally the city. So he brings in Dick. He brings in all these other people. So I can see that. But with this one, what was missing to me was I didn't want to play as Dick Grayson. I didn't want to play as Tim Drake or Jason Todd or Barbara Gordon. I didn't want to play as them at the time because this was the first time I've seen Batman done in a very true sense when it came to gaming. But for me, if I could add something, would be the dynamics of I'm going to go do this. Dick, I need you to stay in the city completing that. Tim, come with me. Not completing that, is, keeping the city in bounds. Tim, come here. Kind of the delegation and in more the broader world outside of this. I think the beauty in Arkham is the claustrophobic feel in that you have to stay here and you have to finish this mystery and you have to finish all this. But there are other aspects outside of that can work for it to come in.
Right.
Like it grew so big when it came to Joker, Croc, Harley, Penguin. Like everyone was there. Two-Face, everyone was there. But when it came to the Bat side, no one was there for him except Oracle. And I love her role in that. I think it's an absolutely great role. But for me, I think it would have been cool, like, Tim, I need you here, and then they see each other. They did that later on in the series, which those are the aspects of those series that I enjoyed. I don't think they did it 100% the best, but I did enjoy those aspects of those stories, even though I think Arkham is the best. I think just, small kisses of it or small touches of it, just little things sprinkled throughout the story, I would have enjoyed a little bit more with the integration.
A little bit of that, a little bit more of the Bat family.
Exactly.
In there.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason? Something that you would have added or changed?
Let's see. That's a tough one because it's been a while since I did like a complete playthrough of this game. I can definitely see what Danny's saying. Like, I'm not a big fan personally of here. I know it probably sounds sucky because, like, in terms of like hero teams, my only team I actually like is the Teen Titans. But I think like just
He just starts chuckling.
Well, because if Teen Titans or Teen Titans Go,
all of them. What I love, Teen Titans Go. For anybody,
Teen Titans. Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't get Teen Titans Go, it's basically what Lego Batman does to Batman is what Teen Titans Go is.
I've never watched the show, to be fair. All I know is it's so kawaii. That's all I know.
It definitely.
Why?
It definitely.
Oh, we're gonna bring out more anime.
More anime.
Reference lingo this time.
So basically,
I'll tell you when you're older.
yeah. Well,
thanks, Dad.
but it really is. It's like nonstop, like super deep cut references. It's a show like for kids maybe to watch it and be like, Robin's funny and Beast Boy's hilarious. But as a fan and you watch it, it like is a total hilarious parody in the same vein as Lego Batman.
See, I gotta watch it now.
I really enjoy that. But even besides Teen Titans Go, just the concept of Teen Titans. Justice League, I'm not the hugest fan of. Avengers, not really. But I do love, like you were saying, like Bat Family or whatever, like whatever your universe is, whatever family. I like when there's crossover, so I could see adding more interactions that just would make it feel like a more natural, breathable world. Because in a real family, like, I mean, Dan, I text you every day, man. Like just people checking in and like, hey, man, what's up?
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. I think that would have been good. Outside of that, what else could I have added? This might seem kind of silly because it just goes against gameplay mechanics, but there's some things like I felt were a little tedious. Like I don't think it should have been such a huge thing that you were slowly acquiring your gear. I think your utility belt should have been stocked from the get-go.
Yeah, do they? And they don't really say like why. I guess.
No.
Right? Maybe presumably he used it all fighting the Joker to get him there, but yeah.
Right.
I hold on, just a little thing on that. I do agree with that, but I did enjoy. Okay. Again, it's been a while since I went through PS4. It's not there except for 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What came out was Return to Arkham.
Right.
Where they released it for the PS4. So it's been at least 2 years since I played this game. So I remember when Alfred's like, Alfred, I need this part of, blah 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 of my gear, and it was sent to him. Did they do that in Arkham Asylum?
In Asylum,
No.
he has a miniature bat cave stashed on Arkham
I
Island.
did love that part.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think that was dope.
He had a miniature Batcave, and there was, I think, at least one moment where we had to retrieve something from the trunk
From the trunk of the Batmobile. And you open it up and it's just bodies in the back. It's like, oh, the wrong Batmobile ever.
Don't mind this one. Yeah.
Just kidding, that's not it. It's for people like, oh, that was in the game.
Was it really? Easter egg.
So,
But honestly,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think if I could say one other thing, and I don't know, I could table this if it's part of your discussion. But I really wish. I feel like the majority of the game went against a lot of video game tropes and need to conform to gameplay. And I think for me, I mentioned this earlier already, but the ending where Joker takes the Titan Serum simply so you have an enormous boss to fight, I would have done something different. I feel like just before that, where he's like sitting on a throne and you're fighting like dozens of Titans,
yeah, and he's
like,
sitting on a throne of like doll heads.
Yeah.
That is like creepy. And he's
Yeah.
holding the dummy, right?
Right.
The dummy.
I feel like that was a perfect moment.
Yeah.
And then to right after that be like, watch this,
Yeah.
was just too much for me. It was
And
too
it's
much.
kind of a lame boss fight too. I mean,
Yeah.
he punches, was it the ground or the wall, and his nails get stuck. And
Right.
you wail on him.
Yeah, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, then he comes with the henchman and is like, yeah, but why don't you jump down there with the henchman
Right.
and just like pick up Batman and tear him in half? Like, you're literally a giant monster.
Right.
And yeah, it felt very gamey.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like that was probably the weakest thing, was that it just ultimately just after a game of like psychological story based everything, it was like all of a sudden like, oh, AAA video game, we got a budget, we we got to sell copies.
Give the kids a giant monster.
Give it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love most of the boss fights in Asylum, except for that last one. It feels climactic in that you're like, oh, I gotta fight a monster, and then you start fighting him, and you're like, well, this is lame.
Yeah, the other one that I thought of was Arkham Origins with Freeze. That one was very.
That was City. Where
that
you
City
fight
with Freeze?
Where you fight Freeze.
I thought that was
And how
Origins.
he learns.
Yeah, that is one of the
Like,
best
oh, you
boss
took me-
fights I've
yeah.
ever played.
That was
play it
rad.
on Extreme. I was listening to a video that was saying, play these games, and if you do replay them, try this. Play them on their hardest difficulty. Oh, God. Because then you will learn...
You get more trophies.
Right. Because then you will learn to be the Batman. Batman doesn't have icons over his enemies that flash at you. That's Spidey sense.
Right.
Okay, you're talking about a dude's throwing a punch at you. You
better know.
can counter it or punch him first, or jump, or hit him with your cape, or whatever. But then you get a sense, like, I've played Arkham City on the hardest mode and played that Mr. Freeze fight where literally I was like, I don't know what else to do because I've done everything and he still has health left. And you start to get creative. You start to think like Batman.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff is really, really cool.
That and Croc. I think Croc was a top-notch fight. Well, it wasn't really a fight. It was just more
Kind
of
of
a
like escaping.
Yeah,
It
it
got
was
in your head. You
Yeah.
know, to where you're like, if I make a sound, I will die. Yeah.
And then even my wife walks in and I'm like, shh, quiet.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. So Winstolf on Twitter said, really enjoyed how tight and experienced this game was, considering how its sequel never gripped me in the same way once it went to bigger world. This is coming from not a Batman fan. I know this man, not personally, but I speak with him frequently. He writes for us. So yeah, coming from the perspective of a Batman, not a Batman fan, I think it's interesting that he would say something like that. But it hinges into another question, which is by Spud the Sap on Twitter. Do you think it was a missed opportunity on DC's part to not build a bigger universe of DC games off this series?
Yes.
It's kind of a yes or no question.
Yes, 100% yes. Especially after Asylum. Once they knew Asylum, and then they saw the sales of City.
Yeah.
They could have.
Yeah. I would love to play a Man of Steel game like this.
Yeah, like I mean, the last
Call it Man of
Superman game that
Tomorrow,
came
yeah.
out was the N64 game that was rated one of the worst games of all time.
Yeah.
And that's horror. I still haven't beaten the first level. Have you played that game, Moses?
Have
you beaten it?
Played it. No, I've not beaten it. I turned it on. I was like, I'm not playing this. Now there's a side-scrolling beat 'em up, Return of Superman or Death of Superman. Can't remember, on Super Nintendo. That's like, it's a decent Superman game, but Superman in a beat 'em up is kind of a wasted opportunity. Like, the man can fly. And you've got him walking slowly across the street. So, but yeah, yes or no on that question. What do you think? Should Rocksteady, and this is still an open question, I mean, should Rocksteady build a bigger DC universe, or should they stay away, as Winstolf suggested, from getting too big?
Let me, because I know you a little bit. Let me amend this. Just
all right.
Let me just hold,
Danny
hold
is
on.
literally like outstretched arm.
Hold on one second.
He's literally like choking him right now. Call the
I'm literally
police.
like Darth Vader, Darth Vader choking right now. Just let me put this on there. With as much care that Rocksteady did to Batman, okay, it's kind of like what we were talking about with the Avatar series. Okay, with the new the new live action. All the ducks are aligned. It's on a good streaming system. It's got a good director. It's got a good, all these things, good writer, stuff like that. Rocksteady proved themselves with this game, and then they even did more. Like, I would prefer this game. This one is City for me. I know we're going to probably rate each one, but those are on par. With what they did with care for these, we don't know if these people were comic book fans or not. Let's say that they were right in the middle. Half of them were and half of them weren't. They did justice to the character, and they went and they grabbed people like Paul Dini to, helm the story and stuff like that. With that, how good they cared for Batman, if they translated that with other series, I would love to see a Wonder Woman game.
Yeah, I can't even think of a Wonder Woman game.
No, there's not. And I think that would be an awesome game.
It wouldn't.
Except for her invisible jet, because then I would crash into buildings. But, like with that, of what they did with bats, and they did that with Flash or Wonder Woman or something like that. What are your thoughts with that?
I don't know if this is the pragmatic answer or the idealistic answer, but maybe it's a mixture of the two. And if I were to compare it to music for a second, we've talked before. Actually, we were talking just the other day about my love for the Beatles.
Yeah.
And there's something magic just about those four dudes. I don't think you could have switched out any one of them and gotten the same result.
Even Ringo?
Even Ringo. Even though John Lennon, when he was asked, is Ringo the best drummer in the world? John Lennon said, he's not even the best drummer in the band. As messed up as that sounds. I think if you didn't have the chemistry of those four dudes, you wouldn't have gotten that music. And then they part ways, and they still did some cool stuff, but it was just the chemistry of those particular four guys. Now, when we look at Rocksteady and Arkham Asylum, I think it was a mixture of the team of developers that they had at the moment with the writers that they had at the moment, and they hit lightning. But I think even by the time we get later on in the series, they lost some of that. Mm-hmm. And I think that it just so happened that they had a team that just had a vision to adapt to what Batman is and turn it into gameplay in a way that was pure genius. And like we said earlier, people are still riffing on the combat. Marvel Spider-Man PS4 released 2 months ago is still riffing on the combat, still has detective mode. It set the standard. And I think that if you now took that and wanted to branch it out into other games with other characters, and especially if you're still trying to set it in the same universe, I doubt that you'd be able to capture lightning in the bottle the way you did on that first one, just because they're, like Moses was saying with Superman. I personally, I love Superman as the idea of this like icon, in the sense that, he can be forever pure, whereas Batman, because of his humanity, he can't take the same type of approach that Superman has, and he has to kind of embrace some of this like more brutal and dark aspects, baser aspects of his nature.
Right.
Now, when you translate that into a video game, how do you do that? in a way that's interesting. You can't have Superman running around like stopping bank robbers and think that's going to be fun for long. You can't have
Too easy.
You know what I mean?
What are they gonna do? Shoot him?
Right.
Yeah, and I like where your thought is going right now.
True,
It's like you can't. It's like they tried to do this with Man of Steel, right? They try to inject Superman into the Dark Knight trilogy,
Right.
and it doesn't really jive. I would like to see if they did do this. If Rocksteady did make a Superman game, don't connect it to the Arkham games.
Yeah.
Maybe teasingly, maybe in a bit of background lore, but don't try to go that route. Don't make a Superman game that's basically Arkham Superman.
Well, they
Right.
do that in the comic books now. You
Right.
know, like I mean, you can't say that now because Brian Michael Bendis is helming Superman, which I don't like. But before that, with Tomasi Gleason alongside Tom King's Superman, they're in the same exact universe, but two different cities, meaning two different entities, two different demos, kind of a thing. They could do it.
If you don't mind, can I jump in for a sec?
Sure.
So we've talked, you and I have talked a lot about Peter Tomasi's run on Superman and how I think he had the most brilliant opportunity and stroke of genius to root Superman in humanity and bring this like brilliant aspect of vulnerability to the character in the form of his family, in Lois and Jonathan. And in doing that, we've got, in my opinion, some of the best Superman stories we've had in years. And so from a gameplay perspective, again, like they tried this in the Superman Returns tie-in for PS2, where Superman didn't have a health bar, but Metropolis did. So there's all these robots and superpowered things running around trying to destroy the city or destroy whatever, and you only died or lost quote-unquote health based on the destruction leveled on the city. If anybody has ever played video games long enough to have done like an escort mission where you're like, you got to get this character to from point A to point B, or don't let the orcs break the gates of Helm's Deep, or like those.
That was a great game, dude. Yes.
It was a great game. It was a great game, but those make for like the most drudgery gameplay scenarios.
They certainly can. Yeah.
I mean, dude, like you could easily like you write a story and like the main villain is Lex, and Lex knows his weakness, so he provides all his people with kryptonite laced bullets, kind of thing. Like you could very much, or even Wonder Woman, like she's not invulnerable herself; it's just her bracelets. So if you can do it like.
But then again, so for the story in the video game, they all have kryptonite laced bullets. But then as what Arkham did is let you feel like Batman. If you did that, you don't feel like Superman.
How do you feel
like you can
Superman?
explain a weakness for a gameplay perspective to give you vulnerability, but you don't feel like Superman anymore.
Well, so are you saying like on the other side of the world, or on the side of the United States, or whatever, Jonathan and Lois is being kidnapped, and he is on the other. He's in Paris, let's say, and then he has to fly through, trying to get there faster, and there's buildings in the way, and he has to get there quicker. Stuff like that.
I mean, I have no idea. All I know is what Arkham did more than anything else was make you feel like Batman.
Yeah, that was their tagline, right? Be the Batman.
Yeah. And a game that makes you feel like Superman or feel like Wonder Woman. I mean, I just don't know how do you do it?
Yeah. Maybe we're not at a point, gentlemen, where games are able to address those things. I mean, we're getting to the point where games are so huge. Like I saw a map comparison. I think it was Red Dead Redemption 2. Map comparison to like real life Europe. And like I was like, dude, that map is gigantic. But how do you feel like a character? Because and at a certain point, it's kind of a cop out to say, well, you could play as Superman, but we're going to take away all his powers,
right?
And you have to gain them back. Now that was a scenario that I wrote a while ago, where it's like Lex could send nano machines up into the sun, convert it into a red sun. And then that's it, and you slowly have to regain your powers over time. That's very gamey, though. It doesn't allow you to get the sense of, like, what is it like to have that freedom to soar over the city? What's it like to hear two people crying out at opposite ends of the earth and have to choose one.
Right.
What's it like to constantly worry about Lois getting in trouble?
Yeah.
But you can't stop her because she's her own person.
Yeah, that's what's so nuts. Like Batman did Batman well, and I feel like this, like Spider-Man 2 and the newest Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man on PS4, the swinging mechanics more than anything else makes you like, I am Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I thought that game nailed the Spider-Man character too.
Yeah.
His sense of guilt.
Yeah.
He's just like, what if it was my fault? It's like, dude, suck it up. But it's like, that's Peter Parker.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I think you're right. Like, how do you do that realistically within the limitations of technology to like make the choice between I hear this cry here, or I could jet over there to.
Okay.
But did you think that before Arkham Asylum came out? Like, how can you make Batman be like, oh, I'm a detective, and how can
I don't remember what I thought in 2000.
Right?
Although I just know I always longed for a game that was good.
Yeah. And
But that's the thing. Like, I know you're the pessimist, but I want to believe that if you put the right minds together, and like Jason said, lightning in the bottle, I don't know who those people are.
Right.
Like, even look at God of War. God of War was a one-type game before this new reboot. Did you play this new one?
No.
No.
I haven't.
It's really good.
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
Like, really, really, really
everything that I've heard about it looks
It's so good. And it was one type of game. And you thought you were going to get like, oh, yeah, I was going to kill this person and do this and then whatever kind of a thing. But then they redirected it. And that director, like I read like a week after that director launched the game. The game launched, and a week later, IGN and a lot of other people were reading their reviews, but then he didn't want to read those. He read actual like people's reviews. And it's them and him reading the reviews of people playing his game, and he got teary-eyed. Like, this is someone who's passionate about this. And I think that if you can catch lightning in the bottle, they can see and this is, my big shtick. If you listen to Opinioneering, my big thing about stories is if you get the right people involved, people that are passionate about the stories, people that are passionate about the characters, because people don't get like, there are, how many other characters? Shazam has invulnerability and has flight.
You're right.
Right. But they're not invested into Shazam.
Right.
You get involved into the characterization. If you can get people that love these characters as a story, and then you can say creative people, more creative than are around this table. But I'm pretty sure if we gave ourselves, us three around this table, 1 week to come up with a good Superman game, I think we could do it.
Done. We're doing it.
We're doing it. Yes. And we'll propose it to Rocksteady. But I think that and there's a line between what works in comics and what works in a game because of that level of interactivity.
Yeah.
You could say in a comic very inventively that Superman's humanity and his weakness is his family now.
Yeah.
But how
Not
do you
now, but 6 months ago, yeah.
Yeah. I beg your pardon. I haven't kept up on that.
You're fine. You're good.
Oh, good. But how do you convert that into the ones and twos of gaming, where it's like, this is, like health bars don't exist in comics,
Right.
but health bars in a sense have to exist in a game because a game has rules and a comic book doesn't. The rule in a comic book is read and finish the book, whereas the rules in a game is, do you create a game that doesn't have a game over? It's possible. And again, I'm not saying it's impossible to make a Superman game. I'm just saying it's probably really hard.
Well, the rules are just finish it as the reader, but the rules to the writer are different than the reader.
Oh, of course, yes, and that's absolutely true.
Right.
Because storytelling as a craft,
correct,
has its own set of rules.
Did you read Superman Unchained?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Snyder, right?
Snyder, yeah.
Okay.
I love Snyder.
Yeah.
And I think he's good in just small niches and other things. I
didn't enjoy Unchained.
I liked Unchained a lot for different things. The longer it went on, the less I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But the very beginning, I think it's the very first issue where this building is falling. And he's doing this math in his head. I have 3.25 seconds in order to come up with a decision and how to do this.
Right.
And so I'm not talking about bullet time in a game. I'm not talking about all that. But I'm just saying that those type of things, the decisions, he hears two different, where do you go? Do you go to the left or do you go to the right? What do you do? And that affects the gameplay.
Right.
Because the most things that we can see about Superman is that either choice that he makes, there's going to be a negative outcome.
Right.
And then he overcomes that negative outcome.
Right.
And you as the player, there are some people out there like, I don't care if that person died way over there. But
you have to make it cost the player.
You have to make the cost of the player.
Right.
They did that in Mass Effect. You explained to me in Mass Effect that I never played all of them, but one thing that happened in one, if you decide to like let a genocide happen to this one alien race, it affects you down the line.
Right.
You can do that.
Yeah.
When it comes to a Superman game.
Yeah.
The effects of what
it would
happens.
definitely have to be less cut and paste, because you cannot inject. If one thing we've seen with the history of Superman storytelling, you cannot inject Superman into a context that doesn't make sense for the character.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You've got to be able to figure out how to make him vulnerable enough to be interesting, but not too vulnerable to be like an emo punk band member.
Yeah.
You know, and then you've got to figure out a way to make him powered so that you feel like Superman, but then not so overpowered that he's, untouchable.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. It's almost a bummer. I mean, characters progress in power throughout the ages. Like Superman, OG Superman is
pushing planets out of alignment. Yeah.
Sneezing galaxies away. Reading discs. Reading discs like 110.
Yeah, he can read like a CD.
He can read that like no way. Kind of a thing. No way.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting thought experiment just to see what that would look like to be a good Superman game.
I do agree with you that it needs to be the right people.
Yeah.
I with any project that has to do with people that have been characters that have lasted this long. Like Dick Grayson's last year was 75 years. A year before that was Superman. A year before that was Batman. Like 75 years, you have to do it justice.
Right.
Like that's a long time.
Yeah.
So
I beg your pardon.
No, I was going to say, what else you got for us?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's close this out.
All right.
Is that ending a Batman podcast with Superman talk? It's just an interesting way to go because we're rebels, I just want to say, if you're listening and you have an idea about how to do a good Superman game, let us know about it. Because, we got pull with Rocksteady. I went to high school with Rocksteady. I don't know about you. Thank you, gentlemen.
what high school was that?
Thank you, gentlemen. It was Arkham High, okay? It just was. Thank you guys for joining this podcast. It was really great to have you, Jason and Daniel. Where can we find you guys?
You can find us on @Opinioneering on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So Opinioneering, a lot of people, when we say that real fast, they don't really know what we're saying. We got that term, and I should have said this at the very beginning, but we got this term from a friend of ours who works here at a local Northrop, Northrop Grumman, and he's an engineer. So a lot of people come by and they say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And he says something, but he doesn't have a degree in it. It's just literally his opinion on what it doesn't really work. But sometimes it does. So it's your opinion and your engineering. So Opinioneering. So again, @Opinioneering. So it's literally the word opinion and then EERING on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We also have the Opinioneers on Twitch, where our co-host Colton plays a lot of video games. He plays a lot of fighting games. He's going to go through the Pokemon series here. He wanted to start that now.
Classic Pokemon series?
He's going to try to go through the classic Pokemon series, Pokemon TCG. He competes at EVO. He does a lot of things. So go ahead and like, share, subscribe there @Opinioneering on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and the Opinioneers on Twitch.
And then, of course, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Opinioneering.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, guys. You've been exceptional guests. I appreciate it.
Thanks. This has been a real joy.
Yeah. Bibbity boppity.
Bibbity boppity.
I should end like that.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Magecast as much as I did. If so, please follow, subscribe, share, and leave us a review to help us reach a wider audience. If you enjoy our work, please consider supporting us and our vision for the future of gaming conversations through patreon.com/The Well-Read Mage. Special thanks to my Magely colleague Brent Mead for sound editing. The Magecast theme song, Post Atmosphere, was composed by fellow mage Russell Gordon and can be found on his YouTube and SoundCloud. This episode may be over, but the legend will live on, passed down by the dwarves, the elves, and the dragons.